Okay, on your little agenda thingy. Thank you. That first item, I've already talked to Mr. Shelton about this, but whenever the arts career pathway was restructured, removed, whatever you want to call it, Mr. Shelton and I think Ms. Floyd has done some research on it, and I have, and I've contacted some people at the university, and they're going to have a summit of sorts. They're contacting people from the Department of Ed and different people and getting information, so they're going to have a summit on it. So if you want, I can let you know. Mr. Shelton has already...
Yeah, let me know and I can send it out to the district.
Right.
Like a music educator district, because that's a regional thing too. This is our regional university.
Right. Two of the professors from the university have contacted or have responded, and they want to be involved, and so that's what that first item on there is about, is just making you aware of it. Floyd, I don't know if I've talked to you about it yet or not, but they're digging into it and they're planning something on it, so I'll let you know when it is if you like. Okay. The actual thing is my action research, and I went, tried different themes, ideas, and considered doing something with special needs, and considered doing something with just different aspects. I wanted it to be art related or art classroom related, and my professor and I kind of narrowed it down to this, since we are a Leader in Me district, that it might be helpful to see how I can use it better than what I was. Whenever I was at the elementary school, most of the staff embraced it, some did not, which is the case with any program, I understand that. But it seemed like almost all the kids were really into it, and still are. They really like having the jobs, and they like being considered leaders and being special and unique. And then when I came over here, it wasn't so much. It seemed like that some of the middle school students, and I think it's just the nature of the beast, they were cynical about it and thought it was manipulation, which they didn't call it that, they called it other things. And I think they would be that way about any kind of program, just because of that particular age group. But the differences in attitudes between the two groups got me thinking about somehow using that for my action research. And then also, as most of you know, whenever I came in, I had one particular group that was lovely, and I was kind of warned about them before I ever even entered the classroom. And so I wanted to figure out a way that I could make myself better prepared, and that I could better communicate to them expectations and ways in which I could use Leader in Me to help us all. So that's what brought about this specific thing. On the Leader in Me website, it says that Leader in Me teaches 21st century leadership and life skills to students and creates a culture of student empowerment based on the idea that every child can be a leader. And that's something that my professor and I were talking about, was the idea of empowerment. And Mr. Rhodes and I have talked about that as well, that if the students feel empowered of their own learning, of their own academic success, then that success is more likely. That if they feel they have more control over it, that perhaps that is more ensured that they will succeed rather than fall behind more and more all the time. And some of the things that I pulled from this particular website are these paradigms. And the one that struck me the most was the paradigm of motivation, where you don't necessarily want the educators to control the direct student learning. You want them to empower the students to lead their own learning. I'm a control freak. I want it all. I want to do it all. I want to plan it all. I want you to do it my way. And so that's a struggle for me. And so But if it's effective, and if that's what it takes to get some of these kids that are falling through the cracks, then, that's what I'm going to do. I just need to learn how to do it and do it effectively. So, of those paradigms, the paradigm of motivation was the one that struck me the most that I needed to work with, and that might be the most within my control, where some of the others maybe are not, and that I can use that somehow to let them feel more accountable for their own learning and for their own success. My research question was how does student leadership and student-led classroom and the style of Leader in Me program affect student accountability in our classroom? And my professor and I talked about some of the things that I was doing, which we'll talk about in a minute, that are data-driven. We're not necessarily part of a student-led classroom. It deals with student leadership, but not student-led classroom. But at the same time, some of the things that I was doing in the classroom was letting it be student-led. It's just not the things that I focused my data on, if that makes sense. I was letting them have more leadership within the classroom, yet those weren't the three specific things that I based my data on. So my proposal was that I have 2 7th and 8th grade combined art classrooms from the middle school. The 4th period group I gave leadership roles to and responsibilities. The 5th period group I did not. And the idea that I pulled from Leader in Me, and I know this is not the end all to Leader in Me, but one of the concepts that I pulled from Leader in Me was that if the students feel more accountable for what is going on, if they feel that they are unique, and if they feel that they have potential, then they'll step up to the challenge, and that will help ensure their academic success. So, so what I did was gave one group leadership jobs and not the other. The group that I gave leadership jobs to, they're just 2 totally different groups. I don't know, Ms. Rhodes, if you know who's who in those groups, but one of them is almost like the group that I had coming in last year. Not quite, but there's some that could have been in that other group completely. But then the other group is made up of a lot of high achieving students. So it's kind of a different dynamic of the two. And my research lasted for a period of 6 weeks. So the jobs, I wanted to focus on art-related jobs. I wanted to give jobs that were authentic. I didn't want to do a light leader and a door leader and stuff like that. I wanted to do things that would actually empower them, that they could excel at and that other students in the school could see what they were doing. There were 18 students in there. Of those 18 in 4th period, unfortunately only 7 brought back their consent forms, so I could not use the entire class group in my data. So that kind of threw me off a little bit as far as thinking that I could get valid results. But I think I had enough of a mix that it's fine, that it was okay. Of that 4th period class, approximately a quarter of those students had already experienced poor grades or behavioral issues or both. And not just in my class, but just throughout the middle school. Like I said, I tried to make them art related. I tried to make them authentic. And as we went through it, I think if I had scaled it back some and just used the one class and given jobs to half the class group and not the other half. I think I could have handled it a little better because with that particular group, some of these jobs, even though the students were perfectly capable of doing them, they needed guidance on. And if I spent 10 minutes one-on-one with one student, everybody else was losing their minds. And so I found that I couldn't direct them the way that I wanted to and the way that some of them needed. Some of them got it and took off with it. And then some of them were a little, they kind of needed a little more guidance. So that didn't quite work out the way that I would have liked for it to. I know that, I think the gentleman that I gave the art contest organizer came and spoke to you once, maybe, and that was it. He hasn't done anything else with it, and I've talked to him about it, and it was done. He went and talked to you, but he didn't, I don't know, didn't follow through. What I did to gather data was I had these different things that I did with as far as keeping track. I had a classroom dynamic assessment, and then I had a daily checklist that I did with both groups. The self-assessment I gave at the start of the research, and I gave at the end of the research. And I'll show you a graph on that here in just a second. And then the daily checklist I did every day with both groups. So these are just some examples of what's on those pages that I just handed you. The other thing of those, other than those two things, I also had the person that I chose for a videographer. She videotaped both classes doing the same project, and I kind of compared behaviors and the way the students worked through the project and the way they worked with each other between the two classes, and so I went from there with that. Okay, the Likert scale, that is the self-assessment. Like I said, I gave it to both classes at the beginning and at the end. These graphs are the results of the end research questions. And what this shows is that the fifth period group, who did not get jobs or responsibilities, they maintained a positive attitude from beginning to end. They answered, for instance, on question 2, I feel like I'm giving many opportunities to participate in art class, and 9 of them answered always. Or number 3 was, number 1, I feel that I'm an important member of our art class. 8 of them said always. So they had a positive attitude about the class in general, about themselves, about their potential as leaders, and about how they interacted with other students. The fourth period group, the ones who were given jobs, this is their end of the research scale, their assessment. And even though they were given responsibilities, and they were treated by me as leaders, and they were told, which I told them up front, I assigned responsibilities according to their strengths. If I knew that they weren't afraid to speak in public, or if they weren't afraid to, do whatever, or if they had really strong art skills, I took those into consideration when I assigned the jobs, which maybe I should have had them apply for the jobs. But what I did was assign them according to, maybe it's a control thing, I assigned them according to what I saw as their strengths. So, but at the end of the research, they're still right here and below. They're still on that sometimes, almost never, and never scale, as far as seeing themselves as leaders, or as far as seeing themselves as having a positive attitude towards their peers. So I hated to see that, really, because I wanted them to grow. And I think maybe if I could have worked one-on-one with some of them on particular days, maybe during second period, if I'd brought 5 of them in. Said, okay, today let's work on your jobs. Something like that, rather than trying to do it with all of them in the same room at the same time. Because what I started out doing was I started out working with them on Fridays during class. And it was just bedlam, because I would have 2 or 3 working, and I would be guiding them through what they needed to do, and everybody else was here, there, and everywhere. So I think that if I had brought them in a few at a time during second period, that I could have managed the whole thing a little better. I don't know if that would have changed these results. Maybe it would have. I don't know. Okay, so the second thing was the checklist. And I haven't done a graph on this because it was just so out there. But according to the checklist, the 4th period group did not exhibit positive behavior as a group on any given day of the week. Now, I made the checklist kind of an all or nothing thing, which I maybe should have changed that so that it was a scale rather than all the students walked with good behavior down the hallway, or all the students did this. So maybe I should have made it a range kind of thing instead. But on the other hand, the 5th period group exhibited positive behavior as a group on approximately half of the days of the 6-week period. So, you know, it's not that it's impossible for them all to walk from the middle school to the high school at 0 or 1. You know, it's not impossible for them all to come in and sit down and do their homework. It's just that they didn't. There was usually, you know, 1, 2, or 4 or 5 that were the instigators or were the issue. And then when we did the videos, my videographer videoed her own class and then stayed and videoed the next class. And I tried to kind of stand back and see how everybody took it. I didn't try to intervene a whole lot that particular day, and 4th period was disruptive with a lot of the students being off task and just kind of everybody doing their own thing. And even though I kept the same behavior myself in the next class of standing back and watching to see how it would all pan out, the 5th period class was mostly calm. They stayed on task. They came in and did what they were supposed to do, and we went on our way. So, and that was towards the end of the research that we did the videos. It was, I think, the 5th week. So it just, there was really no progress as far as 4th period having the jobs and doing all of that. So basically within the time frame of 6 weeks, allowing students to have classroom leadership opportunities does not have an obvious effect on student behaviors or attitudes as suggested by the Leader in Me program. Now, one of the things that I believe is that you have kids who come in from negative feedback at home and from years of negative interaction with other people, and you're trying to make an improvement in one class in 6 weeks. So